Rotation and experimentation. That's what Steve Borthwick has gone for in naming his matchday 23 for England taking on Chile at the Rugby World Cup this weekend. And that's what I'm talking about in this video, mainly Marcus Smith starting at 15. That is going to be what is grabbing the headlines. That is going to be, I would imagine, what most people have an opinion on. So you can whack yours down below in the comments section. Also, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel as well so you don't miss out on anything. But let's get into it. So I think a lot about this team selection makes a lot of sense from England in terms of the opportunity to rest and rotate. In terms of Pool D and in terms of their opponents, Chile are the weakest. They've played what are probably on paper the two toughest. I know Samoa coming up are no mugs, but you would say that Chile is the chance for England to rest and rotate this squad. This is the game to do it. They've had two tough test matches on the bounce, and so Steve Borthwick giving rest to a number of players that really need it and also an opportunity to a number of players that probably need some minutes under their belt makes a lot of sense from an England point of view. This is the sort of game that you can experiment with because regardless of the 23 that England select, you would back them to be able to get the victory and to get the 5-point victory. Obviously, the Marcus Smith news is the biggest talking point. Owen Farrell also comes back in as well. So Farrell replaces George Ford at fly half. Ford drops to the bench. It'll still be interesting to see what happens with those guys maybe once they get to some of the tougher games in the competition. And Marcus Smith comes in at fullback. Freddie Stewart drops out of the team. There are a lot of other interesting things to get into actually, by the way, which I will do in the video. And I've had the team up on the screen there. But let's get straight into the whole Marcus Smith news, because I'd imagine that's what most of you will be most interested in. I would have thought. You can let me know if that's not the case. Look, he's looked good coming off the bench at fullback in the last few games. He has given England an injection of energy, a different dimension to their attack and a threat in attack that up to that point they were missing out on. And I suppose going back to what I've said already in terms of this being Chile and in terms of it being a good opportunity to rotate, you might as well give him a go because bringing Farrell back in does make sense as well. He's been suspended. Get him some game time. George Ford has played really well. So Farrell gets game time at 10 and Marcus Smith gets game time at 15. It also gives you two playmakers on the field, almost in the same way to how the Springboks use their options at 10 and at fullback, whether it's Libbok at 10 or Willemse there, you have Leroux at fullback or Willemse at fullback, and you have different playmakers in that back line. And actually, I think you could argue Elliot Daly at outside centre. I know he generally doesn't play too much at centre anymore. It's where he first broke through many years ago now, but he gives you a little bit more of a distributor in there as well and a left-footed kicking option. So it's a back line for England with Marcus Smith at fullback where you have different playmaking options, and perhaps that has been a part of the issue for England so far. And I actually think Joe Marchant has played pretty well from a defensive point of view at 13, but he's probably less of a distributing outside centre. And then in terms of the big ball carrier, Manu or Ollie Lawrence, whoever it is at 12, you also don't have that second playmaker there as well. So it gives England more ball players in their back line, and that is another reason that it does make sense. My concerns, I suppose, and perhaps they're unfounded, is that if it was a quarter-final tomorrow or if it was a must-win game, are we yet at the stage where you would have Marcus Smith at fullback? Now, many England fans will say, look, their attack has been so poor. I want to see some more excitement. Let's give him a go. And I do understand that argument. But he's also never played a professional game at fullback. And I think he'll be fine against Chile. But I still revert back to that question of, is this genuinely something England are going to be able to implement against the very best teams in the world, in those kind of knockout games that it looks like they're going to get to at this World Cup? And I suppose I'm just still not too sure. The other thing as well is I know Freddie Stewart as a fullback has had his issues and concerns over his form recently, but for the most part, what he generally does give you is real competence in the air at the back. Does Marcus Smith quite give you the same in that area? Maybe he does. I mean, I know he's not bad there. He's obviously used to fielding kicks at the back because fly halves always drop back into that position. But again, it was just another question to probably throw in there. Overall, though, I do agree. Do you know what? Why not? Why not give this a go? Let's see how it works for England. But are they going to end up doing that in some of the tougher games to come? I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly negative. And look, I have been, certainly after the Japan game, fairly critical of this England team and their attack. So Why not try something different? Why not get Marcus Smith on the pitch, even if that is at fullback? Let's see how it goes. I mentioned Owen Farrell already. As I say, I think it makes sense for him to come back in. I think the big question mark for Steve Borthwick and the really fascinating thing for this team, again, looking ahead to perhaps some of the tougher games England will have in this World Cup, what happens then at fly half? Do you go for George Ford because he's been pretty good in the open, well, excellent in the first game, good in the second game, and then you have Owen Farrell at 12, again, kind of that double playmaker pivot. Then Freddie Stewart comes back in at 15. It's a little bit of an if, but, and maybe at the moment. For now, though, I think Farrell coming back in does make an awful lot of sense. Let's run through some of the rest of the team for England. Bevan, Rod, Theo Dan, Kyle Sinckler in the front row. All guys that need game time. In particular, I think Theo Dan at hooker. Jamie George drops out. And I mentioned after the Japan game that Jamie George is a player who is being asked to do an awful lot of work for England at the moment. The depth at hooker has been a concern since Luke Cowan-Dickey's injury. So Theo Dan getting an opportunity and Jack Walker coming off the bench, I think, is a positive thing. And likewise, Bevan, Rod and Kyle Sinckler. You feel at the moment they aren't the first choice guys. Kyle Sinckler in particular, you know, has the capability to be that, but I don't think his form has been quite there. So I'm glad to see they both come in. It's a similar story in the second row where again, there's rotation in there. George Martin comes in and gets a chance. We've seen him come off the bench. I love him as a player. I want to see him kick on in an England jersey, so I hope he can do that. And then the back row, as is often the case with a lot of teams, and certainly is the case with England, is such a fiercely competitive position that it's an opportunity for Jack Willis. He gets his chance at 7. Billy Vunipola starts for the first time this World Cup and gets some more minutes in his legs. And then Lewis Ludlam is there as well. Obviously, Ben Earl playing very, very well. Courtney Laws playing very well for England as well. So there's not much room for manoeuvre in the back row, is there, from an England point of view? But Jack Willis does certainly bring something different. So I'm glad to see him there. And it's a kind of physical, combative back row that England like to produce. I love Lewis Ludlam, as I've said already on the channel. Danny Kerr at 9. Seems to be that Mitchell, for the most part, has been the starting 9. Ben Youngs, again, is on the bench here. And then it's kind of Youngs or Kerr that are those that come off the bench. I've mentioned Owen Farrell. Ollie Lawrence at 12. And then Max Malins, Henry Arundell, Marcus Smith, the back 3. Interesting that they haven't gone for Max Malins at fullback. I know that he can play there. Obviously, as I've said already, it is very much about the second playmaker. And then Henry Arundell gets an opportunity. That bit of pace in the England back line, which they've maybe just been missing a little bit. I hope he takes that opportunity. I feel like with Henry Arundell, we've either seen him be absolutely exceptional in his early England career or hasn't really had the opportunity to do too much. I know he had injuries last season with London Irish as well, so didn't play as consistently in the Premiership as he or England coaches would have wanted him to. But yeah, that is the England team on the bench. I don't think there's too much to get excited about on the bench. It's kind of a lot of the guys that have been starting but will be decent reinforcements. So yeah, drop a comment down below. The main chat of this team is Marcus Smith at fullback. What do you make? What do you make of it? What do you make of that decision? Are you glad to see him there because of what he can bring to the team? Or do you think ultimately when we get to a quarter-final, he's not going to be playing there anyway? So why start him now? I can kind of understand why they're doing it. This is a game for experimentation. I think England will still beat Chile. So I kind of get it from that point of view. Drop a comment down below. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. And I'll see you in the next one.